there. And a good morning to you. I had to find it. I got the headphones pulled down too low, so that's why I couldn't hear myself. Good morning. 40 degrees. May the 4th be with you. Yeah, 40 degrees. But I made the comment yesterday, we're going to pay for this in July and August.
I think we'll pay. I think you're right. I think we'll start paying for it in a couple of weeks.
I mean, I think summer's going to be brutal because we have had a great spring.
We have. It's been wet and cooler.
Yeah.
It's going to be dry and hot.
Humidity about 1,000%.
I say that probably rain all summer.
It's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly. I'm just going to tell you. Go ahead and get ready for it. We do have a guest on for today. His name is Caleb Talman.
Yep.
And Caleb is going to join us to talk about a article that was published in WSN, which is the World Sports Network, talking about high school talent and what they earn. And the reason that's applicable is because it passed yesterday, North Carolina, 15-3 on a 15-3 vote. And I was contacted about some additional information, and I thought this guy would be good. He's out of Cullowhee.
Yep.
I think he went to school at Western.
Oh, cool.
It would be good for him to join us and give us a little more insight. And here again, you know, when this happened, I saw some texts go out, little group texts that we've got and stuff, and somebody said, well, there's a $120 cap on it. Well, there's not. There's not a cap that I could find anywhere. I read through everything and couldn't find it. Milton saying good morning. It was a pretty good game last night, Lindsay. I watched it. The Hurricanes, at least what I watched through the first two periods, were pretty dominant. My wife says another good reason to get the pool open. Yes, it is, honey. Yeah. God, you need to make sure you got a good list of things, of expectations, you know, for your next husband when I'm gone. Mark Alton, the hotter the better, less crowded on the golf course.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that. I really like it between 50 and 85 is my ideal playing temperatures, but I'll do it. Got a little outdoor therapy planned tomorrow. Got a little tournament in Lincoln with the Lincoln County Board of Realtors. It's a fundraiser that they do, and going to play in it tomorrow.
Nice.
Get outside just a little bit. Glad to have you guys with us. Hurricanes did win last night. I'm not sure what the final score was. I'll look that up. They were pretty dominant when I watched it, and I don't know if that's the way that it continued, but they were pretty darn dominant. Let's see. Where's my scores? 5-1. Yeah, it was 3-1, I think, at the end of two. But the amount of goals or the amount of shots on goal that the Hurricanes were getting were astronomical compared to the New Jersey Devils. So it was a good game of hockey. Second, this is the East second round. Of course, North Carolina does have a professional sports championship, as they have won the Stanley Cup before.
Yep.
The only sports championship, professional sports championship by any team in North Carolina. Wow. Just in case you're keeping score, we got it in hockey. And the Hurricanes have only been around, I'm trying to remember how long they've been around. 20 years maybe? Any idea? I can't remember how long they've been around.
It sure has been popular the last,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, hockey has really it's gained some momentum.
That's cool.
Carolina beat New Jersey 5-1. It was the Knights of Las Vegas 6-4 over Edmonton. And then tonight it will be Florida versus Toronto, Seattle at Dallas. And then the Friday matchup will be New Jersey at Carolina. I think Lindsay told me that in hockey it's 2-2-1-1-1. I believe that's right. 2 at home for the top seed, and then 2 away.
And then 3 ones, right?
And then 3 ones.
That's pretty cool.
So that you've got the home team, if needed, Game 7 would come back home. You'd have four
that's
3
a good way
games.
to do that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So I thought that was that was pretty interesting. But it's a lot of fun to watch. I still don't understand enough of it. I'll go ahead and tell you. I don't understand enough of it.
It's enjoyable. You're right.
Yeah, but if you want action, and I go back and say I think hockey players are some of the finest athletes because of all they have to do at one time.
So Tom Glavine,
skate, move.
Yeah. Tom Glavine was NHL.
I didn't know that,
or could have been, right? Pitcher for the Braves all those years. Everybody talks about tremendous
that's not
athlete.
even the comparison between those two sports,
right? But it's to his competitive fire and nature and how athletic he is. What a great golfer that he and Greg Maddux, Smoltz, all those guys. These are premier world athletes, and the fact that I can't remember if this is 100% accurate, but I do remember, the piece, that you're talking about it. Talking about him playing, hockey, how good he was, and then he chose baseball. And I don't know if hockey was his first love or not, but, regardless, obviously he was very, very good. So it's just interesting.
Where was he from?
Somewhere up north. But it was just really interesting to hear like his story on how he got to where he was and how instrumental that hockey was, in his development as a baseball player. And,
right.
And Lanny, people talk about, a lot about, there's an argument between hitting a puck and hitting a baseball is which one's actually the most difficult, act in sports to be consistently good at. There's a lot of back and forth of that. Many people say hockey is, and many people say baseball is.
The only reason I would say baseball is I would say hockey is because in baseball, the batter is at least stationary. He's got to swing, but he's at least stationary. But in hockey, you're moving, swinging, turning, all of those type things. But usually the puck is not coming at you. Usually you've got control of the puck to shoot it.
Yeah, it's kind of, even though it's two different, executions of, the skill, it's still, I don't know. You put somebody on. I guess hockey players that play baseball could tell you, give you better insight on that. But the ball's coming 100 miles an hour.
It's not coming at me at 100 miles an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
go ahead and let me get that out there.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and get that out there. Lindsay said the Hurricanes were established in 1997. That would have been 2 years after the Panthers, if I'm right. I think the Panthers' inaugural season was 95. So
close to 20.
Yeah,
right?
No, it's
close
over
to
20.
30.
Yeah, close to 30.
Sorry, close to 30.
Yeah, we're getting closing in on 30.
Okay.
We're above 25.
That's awesome.
I saw that. Travis and Lauren Sutton. West Lincoln will play West Caldwell Friday for the CVAC Softball Tournament Championship. I want to say West Lincoln defeated Maiden and West Caldwell defeated Bandies, I believe. Somebody can correct me. I thought I saw Butch gave a press release on that. And it'll be West Lincoln and West Caldwell in the tournament championship for the CVAC. Now, I wasn't aware of this. Keever was talking about this. Not everybody plays a tournament anymore.
That's correct.
Because he said the league that East Lincoln, North Lincoln, Hickory, those guys, they don't play a tournament, so they play a week longer of the regular season.
I'm of the belief that the conference tournament serves no purpose.
I don't think serving purpose in anything.
Well, it serves no purpose to the, if you have, I'm just giving an example, if you have 4 berths, the only people it serves purpose to are teams 5, 6, 7, and 8 if you have 18 conference. Mm-hmm. Well, you have a whole season to figure these things out. But yet, if the number 8 seed were to come in and win the tournament, then the 1 stays the 1 in the playoff seeding, but then the 8 becomes the number 2 seed. Now,
and then 2 and 3 drop down to 3 and 4.
Right, and then 4's out. Mm-hmm. Now we had a situation, 5 or 6 years ago where in the conference we were in here, where all the teams didn't finish their games by the end of the week they were supposed to, and you can only play a certain number of games next week. So what they decided to do was only let the top 4 teams play in the conference tournament. Well, the league was taking 4 teams. What was the point?
Right.
And see, the issue was Maiden was not playing very well through the year, but started playing really well at the end and had a chance to, they were probably the second or third best team in the league towards the end of the year. So then it benefits a team like that. You see what I'm saying? So when I coached here 30 years ago, we were in a 1A, 2A conference. It was us and Cherryville, the 1As, and then we had 5 2As. We played a conference tournament, but it had no bearing on us and Cherryville because whoever the higher seed was, it didn't matter whether or not we won the tournament. It didn't matter whoever the higher seed was went to the playoffs because we didn't take two.
Well,
Well,
I've told you
it's
this
crazy.
with college basketball. I don't like the conference tournaments.
Well, they do that for tradition.
I understand that, but I don't think it's fair because it takes away your body of work for the season.
Well, and that's my whole point.
I think. Now, I get the argument that people say, yeah, but when you get to the tournament, the conference tournament is more like the NCAA tournament. I don't care.
Yes.
I think the ability to get to the playoffs should be based on your entire body of work.
Right.
I'm not crazy about championship football games. I've told you that before.
Yes,
in college, I would just as soon
I
would just soon not have a conference championship. They're not well attended, and expand the playoffs like we were doing.
They will be next year in SEC because Alabama and Georgia don't play each other, and there is a very good chance that they're going to end up playing each other in that. Now that'll be well attended,
right?
And I'm not predicting things. I'm just talking out loud, but there's a good chance that game could be for the national championship again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. And so it's kind of like, okay, how do we work this out? How does this happen? Like it was a couple of years ago. Bama beats Georgia. Georgia comes back and thumps. I mean.
Well, you only got one more year. You got to worry about it. Cause we'll
for
move.
now.
Yeah.
But that'll change in 3 or 4 years because somebody
field.
won't be happy. Oh, there's too many. I mean, again, I sent the message out to you and Juju. I said, all right, who off of TCU's team's been drafted already. You said, hey, somebody got picked at this pick and somebody got at this one first couple rounds or whatever. And I'm thinking, I'm watching these other teams that got shafted and not let in the college football playoff that got like 6 or 7 kids going. It drives me insane. How do you miss that? And many people say they didn't miss it. They earned it. No, you don't. No, you didn't. You got beat.
How could that team – how could that team not have been a better fit?
If
you've got that many.
Had to be great coaching. No, it has everything to do with who you play.
Mm-hmm.
TCU winning a conference championship in their conference is much different than someone finishing 3rd or 4th in the SEC or potentially the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So that's the problem.
Big Ten's not as deep.
Right, but you can only control what you can control. And I'm not downing their success. What I'm saying is even though you're supposedly all playing in the same sandbox, you're not. Because the sand's a little thicker on this side of the box over here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just food for thought, discussion.
Nope, it's one of those things.
I don't know, man.
It's ever changing, but a lot of folks don't listen. That's the other side.
Well, it's traditional norms, repeating things that we've heard.
Yeah, but here's the deal. My favorite saying is, we don't do anything because that's the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
That doesn't validate.
Well, it's
or
like
make
the
right.
thing that you see posts put up all the time. Like, I see stuff all the time. People are like, oh, kids that play multiple sports are better athletes and all that. That's a very generalized, broad statement that I would 100% have agreed with before COVID. But I'm going to tell you what I saw during COVID. All right? In my own son's age group, all right, because the facility stayed open, right, under the rules and guidelines, okay, of what the government issued. I saw kids that were below average players all of a sudden, through training of several months of consistency, become average. That all of a sudden started excelling and becoming pretty good. That ended up being very good. This would not have happened. Very unlikely happened if they had not been sequential in order in the way they trained.
When I was growing up, because there was very little in-depth training.
Oh, yeah.
The multi-sports was the only way that you got.
No, and I agree with that. Yeah. That's why I play
now.
Yes,
now it's
a little
changed.
Different.
Yeah,
right.
Now it's different to specialize.
So Quinn goes and hits last night next door. He's home for the summer. He's got a hitting group. They all get together on Wednesday. Last night was Wednesday, right? Like at 7:00. He goes over. He comes back about 8:30 or 9, and he had worked out and done all this stuff, and he's firing up the hot tub and all this, and we're talking. And I explained to him. I said, son, in today's world, things are drastically different, and they always will. They will be when you have children.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but what you have to understand, he was asking me about multiple sports and kids playing and why this and why that. And I said, and how things are different. And this was last night. It's crazy we just got on this. And I said, son, you have to remember that, the skill level or the athleticism really doesn't change generation to generation, but the skill level is enhanced due to modern, science and ways of working out. I said, I'll give you a great example.
Availability of assets.
Right. I played football, basketball, baseball, and American Legion ball. I never had a day where I trained. I always played.
That's right.
Playing and training are not the same thing, okay? So when I would finish football season, now I play pickup basketball all the time, all right? So that may not be true because you have availability to courts. Right. But you didn't have it to go out and play football, and you didn't have anywhere to go hit a baseball except off your tee at home the homemade tee you built.
Right.
The point of all this is, how much greater would and I'm just giving an example for me, all right, my individual skill set in baseball had been if I did not play basketball or football, but yet played the other one and been able to train in that sport and get quality instruction along with, weight training and conditioning. Would I have ended up having 2 knee surgeries?
Right.
Likely not.
Right.
Before the end of high school. Would that have bumped me down in potential draft status versus, where I'm going to play, attempt to play college ball, these things? There's a lot that factors into that, and the world is different. So the biases of when we were young are not necessarily true in today's world. All right? We like to say those slogans, but we're basically repeating what we hear and not really having an in-depth understanding. And that's human nature, too, because I'm guilty of it with everybody
And you're
else.
Repeating what was prevalent with you.
Exactly.
You can only speak on your own experience.
It's this stuff right here that we're going to talk about later.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can only speak on your experience.
Yep.
Milton Sain's exactly right. SEC is semi-pro. And compared to some of the teams in the NFL, might even be pro.
That's right.
I'll go ahead and say
who said that, Milton? That's good. That's good.
Take a break. Back in a moment.
Whether it's a sit-down meal or a call-in for the drive-thru, Brookwood Cafe and Catering is the answer. A variety of meats, vegetables, and desserts cooked daily or a hot sandwich from the grill, they have what you're looking for to satisfy your taste buds. If you need catering from 5 to 500, Brookwood has you covered as well. Stop by Brookwood Cafe and Catering at 202 Providence Mill Road in Maiden. Don't forget breakfast daily till 11 a.m. Open Tuesday 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., Wednesday through Saturday 6 a.m. till 8 p.m., and Sunday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Call 828-428-8944 to place your order today.
If you ask around, you'll find Burke Mortuary has a reputation for excellence and commitment to value. They've built a reputation of trust for more than 35 years. Burke Mortuary is proud to offer personal attention, meaningful tributes, and the area's most affordable prices. They're also proud to offer you beautiful, state-of-the-art facilities. It's the perfect place to honor your loved one. So when choosing a funeral home, the choice is easy. Choose Burke Mortuary with locations in Maiden and Newton.
Covenant Church began as a vision of just over 100 people in 1984. Since then, Covenant Church has grown and currently located at 2168 Gastonia Highway in Lincoln. The Sunday schedule includes early morning worship at 8:30, Sunday school at 9:45, and morning worship at 10:45. Their ministries extend beyond Sunday. Visit their website at www.covenantchurch.church to see all they have to offer, and better yet, stop by and see for yourself. Covenant Church may be just what you're looking for a new church home. First Federal Savings Bank has been serving Lincoln County since 1940. And as it has been from the beginning, customer service is a priority to First Federal Savings Bank. They want to get to know you by name. First Federal Savings Bank has the convenience, the products, and the services that the larger banks have, but with hometown people that you see throughout your community. Stop in and visit one of their 4 convenient locations and see what First Federal Savings Bank has to offer you. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
Untangling your headphones, finding the right remote, saying goodbye to your favorite shirt that hasn't fit in 10 years. Why are simple things sometimes so complicated? Thankfully, with Auto Owners, insurance doesn't have to be one of them. Auto Owners works with independent agents who live in your community and answer when you call, so you can worry about more important things, like finding a new favorite shirt. That's simple human sense.
Call Mooney Insurance in Maiden or East Lincoln Insurance in Denver or visit mooneyinsurance.com. Stifel Nicholas now has an office in your community. Stifel Nicholas is a full-service organization offering a wide range of investment vehicles and services. These include money market funds, CDs, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, annuities, retirement plans, and managed accounts, to name a few. Our financial advisors will sit down with you and help you tailor an investment plan, explaining strategies and investments which may help you achieve your personal goals. Call 4Rembert today at 828-624-7300. Stifel Nicholas, member SIPC, and the New York Stock Exchange. And we're back. I haven't had any caffeine this morning, so I had to get on the dew.
Whoa!
Had to get on the dew this
Hey,
morning.
got a dew mid going right here.
Yeah.
We can start
We're
building
gonna build us a dew mid. Yeah, we can do that. We can sure do that. I forgot to cut us off on the other side. God, I'm slacking today. This is bad. I'm half asleep.
Home ice advantage. I can
Home
actually
ice
see
advantage.
that.
Home ice advantage.
Is that what that says?
Yeah, home ice advantage.
Yeah, the rest of it I can't see.
Let's see what else I got going on. Trying to check emails as they come in. All right. Well, pull everything down here gently. I'm struggling this morning. Oh, me. I'm sorry. I apologize for not following the NBA, but I just don't know enough about it. I know the playoffs are going on. That's about the extent of it. Let's see where we're at in this playoffs. Playoffs? Eastern Conference semifinals. The Heat and the Knicks are 1-1. And the Sixers and the Celtics are 1-1. And in the Western Finals, it's the Nuggets and the Suns. And the Suns are up. The Nuggets are up 2-0. And then the Lakers are leading the Warriors 1-0. Now, I'll ask you a question. You hear about it in football all the time, and I forget about it in basketball. But it's baseball as well. How much does the altitude play into home advantage in football and basketball in Denver?
Well, you know what comes into play is the sickle cell anemia that some players have.
Yes,
that
they carry that gene.
There was a couple of kids was it Ryan Clark maybe? I can't remember who it was that played for Steelers that when they would go play and I can't remember if it was him or not, but it was a player. He just for whatever reason comes to mind, but there were some things that from a health standpoint that had to be regulated. In altitude play. And, Laney, it's different. Training at higher altitudes, the kids that are track kids at like Avery County and Watauga County that cross country, when they come down the mountain, their performance ratio is a little better. The area is a little thinner up there. And I saw that firsthand as someone that worked up in that area, with those athletes, and didn't know if it'd really make, a couple of 3,000 feet would really make a difference. It does. I can only imagine in Denver where it's a mile, which is, over 6,000, 5,000, 6,000 feet. So I would imagine that there would be, with the oxygen and things they got on the side, that you can get.
There is some adjustment to it, though.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think so. I think it'd be like, a kid that plays in, the higher mountains, just looks like Andrews or Murphy. Well, Murphy's not real high in the mountains, but like Andrews or Highlands or Swain County would go down and play on the coast and vice versa, at different times of the football season. I'm just giving an example. It's different on how you play in cold weather versus, hotter weather. So
last night in baseball, it was the Tigers over the Mets 6-5, 17 hits. The D-backs beat the Rangers 12-7, 22 hits. Giants over the Astros 7-4. Giants are hurting 7-5 in hits. The Dodgers beat the Phillies 10-6, 12-10 on the hits. The Padres beat the Reds 7-1. Braves hammered the Marlins 14-6.
Yeah. How many hits did Atlanta have last night? They had
18.
Like 12. How many?
18. So that I was just getting ready to ask you. In that game, 20 runs, 30 hits. Is that the baseball you want to see?
Well, it depends on who's playing, and what pitchers are there, that kind of thing. If you're going in a slate where you're not going to, maybe have two of the higher quality arms that start the game, and maybe people aren't slated to relieve and things like that, then you kind of have a shootout, right? But what this tells me is with all these scores and the number of hits that are in these games, is it sounds like to me that a lot of people are throwing the ball instead of pitching it. That's what it sounds like to me.
Some of the other scores: Rays beat the Pirates 8-1. Tigers beat the Mets 8-1. Now, are these the games? The Nationals, who's a bottom dweller, they beat the Cubbies 2-1. 14 hits in that game. The Yankees beat the Guardians 4-3. There were 17 hits in that game.
Who pitched in the I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I need to know on the 2-1 game, who pitched for the Nationals?
For the Nationals was Azoyle.
Who won? The Nationals won, right?
The Nationals won.
I think that kid plays for Chicago, I think.
Oh, he did. You're right. Edwards was the winner. Finnegan got the save.
Edwards Jr., whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so
he's got a 1.5 ERA.
Yeah, I was going to say, that kid, and again, there's certain ones that we learn about when we start following. I'm going to be interested to see how he finishes out this year. He's got some – who got the save?
Finnegan. K. Finnegan.
And he got 6,
7.
5? How many?
7.
Okay. So this, I'm just going to be interested in how these guys. Yeah, I didn't mean.
No.
Wanted to, yeah, this is good.
Kyle Finnegan.
Yeah. Now Kyle's. Let's see. He's about 6'3", 1 or 3.
6'2", 6'2", 200 pounds.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So he's a pretty well built. And what I mean by that, proportionally built for pitching. I would suspect that he would not be susceptible to a lot of injury based on how he pitches, how hard he throws, and what he does based on the way that his body composition is to be able to take the stress of whipping that arm and the action with the back. And sorry, I didn't mean to get off.
No.
I was just curious of who threw for them because that was a relatively close game.
I'm glad you're here because you can talk intelligent about it. I can't.
Well,
not in baseball.
I got nothing.
I got nothing. White Sox beat the Twins 6-4, 20 hits in that game. Your Red Sox beat the Blue Jays 8-3, 21 hits in that game. Royals beat the Orioles, shut them out 6-0. Greinke against Gibson in that game. Zach Greinke, a 5.25 ERA. Is that not high?
Yeah,
he's 1-4 on the season.
It is. He got so last night was his first win, right? Is that what it said? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So look. This is a guy that's really experienced. He paces himself. He's getting older, but at the same time, he knows how to pitch, and so that what'd you say his record was? 1-4. Okay. So last night. Okay. Yeah, you will see him start very likely evening things out, even with the type team that not that they're not a good team, but you will see that in quality pitching that they will, the games will be a lot closer and they have more opportunity to win just based on experience alone.
Trout got his first homer, I think, last night, 9th inning, as the Angels beat the Cardinals 6-4. Brewers fell to the Rockies 7-1, and the Mariners beat the A's 7-2.
Mariners and A's. A's are what on the year?
The A's are 6-25.
Yeah, they're okay.
Both teams losing records. Mariners are 14-16.
It's going to be as much as they talk about the Tampa, the Rays, the flip side for the A's. There's a lot. I think they're moving where next year, is that right?
Yeah. Well, they're moving, but it's supposedly going to take 3 years to get a stadium, so I'm not sure where they're going to play.
There's a lot going on there.
I don't know. It seems like in baseball today, thinking about 15 to 25 hits in a game between two teams is just way, way up there from the way I remember baseball.
Yeah, there's a lot of dynamics that play into that. Yes, kids are, young people are throwing a lot harder today. But what I've noticed is in the metrics, there's never talking about the quality of the pitcher. It's how hard the player throws. Mm-hmm. And then they try to build off of that with spin ratio and all these things. So a lot of times, as things modernize and science becomes more relevant in what we're doing, it often things still have to be sequential in order, right, for success to be imminent and consistent and long-standing. And what it looks like, and it gives the appearance – to me, is that it seems like, Lenny, the cart may be being put in front of the horse. That's kind of what this looks like. I hear about college recruiting and obviously, with things going on, you're very close to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
My brothers are just neck deep in it. And the things that I hear about are the same things that I hear about in football. How fast is he? How does he work in the weight room? How athletic is he? Can he do this? Can he do that? None of those things actually have to do anything. I say don't have to. They have less to do with being a player of baseball or football than they do of just describing what the athlete is like.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this is unrealized potential until it is put together and molded for the benefit of what's going on. In your point, would you rather take the player that is consistent in nature, that will do what you tell them to do and ask them to do 100% of the time, that may not be as dynamic as the one kid that has a little bit of an issue doing sometimes what they want to do, but yet is that dynamic playmaker?
Well, it goes back to what I've said. I'll take less athlete for one that's more coachable.
Right, because what happens is all the sum of all the parts work together and give you 100, right? When you have parts that are not working to equal up the sum of the whole, you can't equal 100.
Right.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. So to your point and to your question, is this not a lot of hits? The answer is yes. Now, there's going to be nights when there's 25 and 30 hits. Teams are going to get hot against great pitching. It's cyclical, right? It's baseball. It happens. It's statistical. But there's a lot of, there's a lot of new ways of thinking things, and that doesn't make them wrong, but this is a result of the new thinking.
Vegas is going to be a popular place. They've got hockey. They've got NFL. Now they're going to get MLB.
Basketball's next, and and I think soccer's already there, right?
I'm not sure.
So
good morning, Brian.
They're going to go. The A's are going to go from small market to very large market.
Yeah,
and it's a smart move on their part, in my opinion.
Milton said Vegas needs a dome for baseball. It was 112 degrees
Milton's
at
right.
game time, and it's just May.
Right. Milton is it Milton? Yeah, Milton's right. And what's interesting is
just like you need one in Minnesota.
Very true. And let's find the places where this is needed. The Arizona thing, the dome is great. The idea of the way they do the turf is going to have to be enhanced because of the issues they had. You bring it outside, grow it, set it inside. That's a great concept. They're going to have to fix that, right? Because the issues
I'm completely good. Well, and here again, this is just me and just an opinion. I like the new. Turf, the new field turf, because it's pretty close. Yeah. It's pretty close to real turf. It just you're going to get much more wear and tear out of it than you do.
And your body's a little safer in that.
I've had people to argue with me that it's more prone to injuries. Not if you go back and look at college, where the athletes' joints aren't already torn up by the time they get there. Yeah. NFL, I think, is a little exaggerated because they've got some pre-existing things that you don't really talk about or hear about, and then it seems like they're easier to get hurt on the turf. And I know what the statistics have said. The NFL played it down a little bit. The Players Association played it up that it's not as healthy. It's not as healthy if the body's not a complete 100%.
Is it healthier if it's pouring rain?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Is it healthier if it's snow?
Yeah.
Is it easier to maintain from a safety standpoint to get the water and snow off? If it's not grass and turf.
Yep.
Does that help prevent? There's a lot of variables that go into
Sure there
that.
are.
Okay, so I had my first knee injury playing high school football when we played at Appalachian State against Watauga. They used to play there in the old stadium. And that turf was as hard as the concrete that I just pulled up on.
Milton just said that. Now, I'm going to tell you, when I was at Boone in 1979, the turf at Appalachian was carpet on asphalt.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
And the only reason it was on asphalt because asphalt gave just a little bit more than concrete did. But it was actually carpet on asphalt.
And this is the problem with asphalt. When it gets below a certain temperature, there is no difference between asphalt and concrete.
It's rock hard.
And we were playing up there when it was cold.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is I got my foot stuck in the turf. A guy came by, hit my knee, tore the MCL, and that started the decline. Now, again, could that have happened with me on turf? Yes, because it did a year later, in playoff football. Mm-hmm. We were playing, on regular grass.
Real grass.
So, it's there.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. That's where it's considerably different. Let me get into this just a little bit, and we'll take a break, and our guest is going to come on about 8:45. And I got to get my glasses on for this because I can't read the small print.
This is really good, by the way.
But I got this article yesterday,
It's really
and it was forwarded to me because North Carolina had passed it. And one thing I do want to say, there are 26, and I'm guessing 27 states now, since North Carolina passed it, that permit NIL. There are 14 states that prohibit it, and there are either 11 or maybe now 10 that have it under consideration. But this article, it talks about, and this is Caleb Tallman's going to join us, and I got to ask him. I've been to where he's from, where he went to high school. He went to Hayesville. I never want to go back to Hayesville, but it's a great.
That's a great place. It's a great area.
It's
there.
forever.
Yeah, it is.
It's forever.
It's part of the world.
Yeah,
it's a great place.
But he gave a little. A little side of it and said there are 6 NC athletes that are in the top 50 of the On3 basketball composite rankings for the 24 class. Each of those players could easily see 6-figure deals, especially with commitments to schools like North Carolina, Duke, and Kentucky.
Yep.
He said the NIL floodgates are now open in North Carolina. Expect this to help North Carolina keep the athletes in state and now do not have to seek playing opportunities in other states where NIL is legal. That's what I was bringing up before. You either all got to be in or you got to all be out. Now, right now, before this, there was only one school, and that was Tennessee, was the only one that had NIL currently. But there are other schools that are taken into consideration. There are some names on this list, and I'll post a link on our feed about it. But the top player in basketball is Bronny James.
Oh, yeah.
He's got 12.7 million followers on social media. Total earning per post, 79,000. Yearly earning, 4.1 million. NIL value, 7.2. The way most of these kids will get this is through the social media post.
Yes.
And they tie it in with whoever is sponsoring them, Puma, Nike, Adidas, whoever with an ad. That's the way it works. Now, there's a considerable difference between the amount of money in NIL on the high school level between basketball and football. The highest earnings potential is a guy named Jason Mitchell out of California. He has 412,000 followers. His top earning per post is $3,600. Yearly earnings $187,000. His NIL value is $161,000. So I give you all this because we're going to talk a little bit further with Caleb and kind of see where they came up with all of this and some of the methodology that they used. Social earnings were calculated at a rate of using .004, a half a penny for every Insta follower per post, almost a penny for every TikTok follower per post, and 1/10 of a penny for every Twitter follower per post. But this is just another way of advertising. And you've seen advertising on websites, and people get paid per click. So that's what they're talking about. Let me take a break, and then when we come back, we'll get set up for Caleb. He's going to join us about 8:45. He'll give us a call back in a moment.
Whether it's a sit-down meal or a call-in for the drive-thru, Brookwood Cafe and Catering is the answer. A variety of meats, vegetables, and desserts cooked daily or a hot sandwich from the grill, they have what you're looking for to satisfy your taste buds. If you need catering from 5 to 500, Brookwood has you covered as well. Stop by Brookwood Cafe and Catering at 202 Providence Mill Road in Maiden. Don't forget breakfast daily till 11 a.m. Open Tuesday 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., Wednesday through Saturday 6 a.m. till 8 p.m., and Sunday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Call 828-428-8944 to place your order today.
If you ask around, you'll find Burke Mortuary has a reputation for excellence and commitment to value. They've built a reputation of trust for more than 35 years. Burke Mortuary is proud to offer personal attention, meaningful tributes, and the area's most affordable prices. They're also proud to offer you beautiful, state-of-the-art facilities. It's the perfect place to honor your loved one. So when choosing a funeral home, the choice is easy. Choose Burke Mortuary with locations in Maiden and Newton.
Covenant Church began as a vision of just over 100 people in 1984. Since then, Covenant Church has grown and currently located at 2168 Gastonia Highway in Lincoln. The Sunday schedule includes early morning worship at 8:30, Sunday school at 9:45, and morning worship at 10:45. Their ministries extend beyond Sunday. Visit their website at www.covenantchurch.church to see all they have to offer, and better yet, stop by and see for yourself. Covenant Church may be just what you're looking for a new church home.
First Federal Savings Bank has been serving Lincoln County since 1940. And as it has been from the beginning, customer service is a priority to First Federal Savings Bank. They want to get to know you by name. First Federal Savings Bank has the convenience, the products, and the services that the larger banks have, but with hometown people that you see throughout your community. Stop in and visit one of their 4 convenient locations and see what First Federal Savings Bank has to offer you. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
Untangling your headphones, finding the right remote, saying goodbye to your favorite shirt that hasn't fit in 10 years. Why are simple things sometimes so complicated? Thankfully, with auto owners, insurance doesn't have to be one of them. Auto Owners works with independent agents who live in your community and answer when you call, so you can worry about more important things, like finding a new favorite shirt. That's simple human sense.
Call Mooney Insurance in Maiden or East Lincoln Insurance in Denver or visit mooneyinsurance.com. Stifel Nicholas now has an office in your community. Stifel Nicholas is a full-service organization offering a wide range of investment vehicles and services. These include money market funds, CDs, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, annuities, retirement plans, and managed accounts, to name a few. Our financial advisors will sit down with you and help you tailor an investment plan, explaining strategies and investments which may help you achieve your personal goals. Call 4Rembert today at 828-624-7300. Stifel Nicholas, member SIPC, and the New York Stock Exchange. And welcome back. Glad to have you here on Thursday morning. Crisp and cool this morning. Now it's up to 46 degrees, so it's went up just a little bit. A lot, but it's nice out there. If the wind's not blowing, it's really nice outside. Let me go to the phones, bring our guest on. He was kind enough to join us on short notice. An article came down yesterday, and I reached out trying to find out if somebody could come on after the North Carolina High School Athletic Association voted to allow NIL 15-3. His name is Caleb Talman. He is from Hayesville, North Carolina. He is sports editor with WSN, WorldSportsNetwork.com, and also does some work with his local high school. Thanks for joining us, Caleb.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you having me on.
I've been to Hayesville one time when I was coaching high school. We're in the Charlotte area. And we did not have a scrimmage game. So our head coach found one at the coaching clinic, and he said, boys, we're going to the mountains for our scrimmage game. The only problem with Hayesville is you go to the mountains from where we're at. You go across the mountains, go down the other side, and I knew we were in trouble when I saw a road sign that said Atlanta 87 miles as we rolled into Hayesville. Hayesville was off the other side of the mountain. We weren't in the mountains. We done went across.
Yeah, I tell folks sometimes there is life west of Asheville in the state of North Carolina.
But Hayesville is a nice place. Those were very gracious people over there, and we had a good trip. That was almost 25 years ago. You used to write some for locally in North Carolina as well. Were you surprised that the vote was as big as it was in favor of NIL, or do you feel like the association felt like if it didn't do this, it would start losing some talent to other places? Tennessee's the only one currently of a bordering state that has NIL.
Yeah, well, I think, and Virginia's actually right along with us. I'm not sure when they voted, but just as North Carolina will be allowing players to receive NIL July 1st this summer, so is Virginia. So it's a situation where I think we have seen some players already leave, and I just think it's a situation, no matter what your political stance is, you get to a point where I think right now we have 29 states that are either allowing it or will allow it in the next year or so. Mm-hmm. So it's just the ball is rolling downhill. And if you get left behind, it puts you in a position where you're just behind a lot of the other states. And we've seen the NCHSAA be behind on other things.
Right.
But I think, as the legislators in the last year or two have started to get involved, whether it was with the NCHSAA's, money situation, classifications, private public school debate, which I don't think we have time to get into that one today, but the NCHSAA has started to work a whole lot harder, I feel like, to try and come up to current times. And we're seeing that because, it also appears that, by 2025, we'll also have more classifications in the state as well.
Right. Yeah. Right. Now, one of the things I did want to ask you about this, because I didn't see anything in the release, and maybe because you've looked at it from other states that are already doing, is anybody putting any structure into it as far as how it will work? Are there maximums? How will this be governed? Will there be representation for these kids? Give me a little more detail other than we're going to allow NIL, if you know.
Yeah, that's the problem that I don't love is, like, North Carolina's current structure is going to be that you got to report any NIL deals to your school, and the school's got to report it to the state. But what's that do for a kid, Yeah. I'm glad that someone's reporting it, and I do think the structure in place where, you can't be a part of raunchy things. There's, you can't have an NIL deal with, anything that's lewd or alcohol, that kind of stuff. Those are good rules in place. But it still doesn't, what happens when that kid that's a superstar sophomore that, is really, really good, but then all of a sudden he hits that 6-inch growth spurt between his sophomore and senior year and goes from, maybe a top 1,000 recruit to a top 50 recruit. But, I think one thing that's missing that a lot of people don't realize is these NIL deals are no different than, not that I'm popular enough, but if someone wanted me to sponsor something for them, I've got to sign a contract and I've got to meet certain, criteria to earn my money. And so what happens when that kid that, is a really good recruit and gets, a little local deal, but then, he'd be available to get a much bigger deal down the road, but whatever contracts he signs and such keep him from being able to do that down the road.
So, Caleb, this is for Rembert. I actually coached at Irwin High School in Madison, 15, 20 years ago, and familiar with, Hayesville, all the area up there. I got a lot of good friends from Swain County, whatever. So, beautiful area up there where you guys are. So, one of the things that when I talk in the circle of, people that I talk with just, off the air or whatever, just friends in general, coaches, teachers, guys that are interested in sports, whatever. One of the big questions is how do child labor laws factor into these things? When you talked about how does it work with, the contracts they have to sign and they have to be beholden to those contracts. Some of these young people are, like you said, 15, 16 years old. They all of a sudden they've grown 8 to 10 inches, basketball, for example, 6 inches, 5 inches, whatever. And, they are now in a different, era and different world than they were the previous year. So how are things being legislated or mandated or even regulated, under current labor laws that would protect these kids from basically predatory, type, business practices?
Well, I think that's where it gets really complicated, and it's one of those things we've seen at the college level. NIL is the wild, wild west in college. Guys are going into the transfer portal saying, "Oh, I have no issues with my school. I love my school, but I'm just going to go to the highest bidder." Jordan Addison went to USC last year, and the rumors were that they paid over $10 million for him.
Yeah.
That's and so you can make a lifetime of money as a high school or early college athlete now. But I just don't think there's a lot in place, and I think what's hard, based on the way some of the NIL legislation came down at the college ranks, it's hard to put big limits on it because when it gets taken to court, because it was taken to court initially, there's no structure in place because you're losing court.
Right.
That's what Northwestern took it to court, and their athletes and other athletes in college won. What the NCAA should have done is they should have got ahead of it. Right. And then I think you'd see the same drop down effect for the high school level. If the NCAA would have got ahead of it and said, these athletes can earn $1 million a year, and put structure in place then, I think things would have been a lot different. What I think happens now, and like I said, I don't think this actually protects the athletes. What I do think you see happen, though, is some of these businesses are going to start to wise up. Because in theory, we know that's not the case, but in theory, these businesses at the college level and even the high school level, because there's going to be recruiting and sponsors and players that want to go to a certain school because they go to that certain school, they know that there's good NIL boosters. is these businesses are going to start to have some of these athletes sign contracts.
Yep.
Yep. You know, the quarterback that went to Ewers, that went to Ohio State a few years ago, man, they said he got a couple $1 million at NIL, and he never suited up on a game day and transferred to Texas. Well, that's still his money. But so I think what you start to see is the businesses are going to wise up, and, you know, you might start to see some structure put in place that way. I think overall, on one hand, you know, it's a good thing. I think, you know, when I look at a small school where I'm from, and I can use that structure like Hayesville, you know, I know the Hayesville Athletic Department has some really solid boosters, supporters, whatever you want to call them. You know, a Jackie Jones or a car dealership business like that, or a Gray's Directional Drilling, like they can sponsor these kids and give them some free meals. You know, make them an athlete of the week and have it be allowed that they get a meal because they're athlete of the week, or, you know, give out some stuff that, you know, some of that already happens, but now it's 100% legal. You know, what's wrong with a kid getting player of the week and getting a $100 gift card?
Right.
To a sporting goods store.
Yeah, no,
big deal.
Completely understand. And I think one thing that was brought up too, you know, in some of the discussions we had is, you know, these venues are provided by public funding, right? And so the people that, you know, are taxpayers that pay into these things are providing the basic, you know, playing area, performance area for these, you know, for these players. Where do the taxpayers that, you know, do their duty, you know, pay their taxes, you know, support their local area, where do they reap the reward or any kind of return for their investment, right? So it's not that we don't want kids to do what you said, because all of that makes a lot of good sense, okay? All your points are very valid. I think the biggest issue is when you talk about, not you, third person, of course, when you talk about, you know, NIL money, all of these things that go on, how was the venue provided? What risks were put in place before that? And now the people that come along that profit off of it, where do they put the returns back in for those that, you know, started it? And I think that's a question that a lot of people with public funding would have, you know, where these things come from. If it's privately done, there's no discussion on it. But when it comes to public funding, you know, what does that mean? Is that the responsibility of the taxpayer to provide, you know, a venue for someone to make millions of dollars? I'm not saying yes or no. I'm saying these are some of the questions that people ask. And, you know, I'd like to know where, you know, not only people like you, but, you know, in general, that study this and really know about it so much more than just general conversation, how you all feel about that, and if anything's ever been brought up about that.
Yeah, I mean, what I'd say on that matter is just you look at North Carolina as a whole, and I mean, how many athletes are going to be getting major NIL deals? I don't think you're going to see that. On one side, I mean, what's the difference between that and, you know, someone getting paid and they pay state income tax, you know? So there is a tax aspect to that, and hopefully some of these kids are getting better deals or bigger deals monetary-wise, or getting some good advisors to help them. But, you know, I personally, as a taxpayer myself, just like I'm sure you two gentlemen are, have no issues with providing and letting my taxes provide really good venues for these high school and middle school athletes and such. And, like, in theory, does it provide them a platform to, you know, really grow this huge following? But, I mean, even at a huge school that has great college athletes that they're pumping out every single year, like a Providence Day or something like that. Right. I just don't see it. I mean, you can get upset because you're a taxpayer and you're providing this kid with a platform. But the thing is, the way I look at it, he's going to be provided a platform somewhere else. And from a school aspect, you know, I'll use an example, which he wasn't at an MCHSA-affiliated school, but I think it still applies. Eli Ellis was a star freshman basketball player, and he left to go to OTE because he can make money there. And, you know, does a kid like that stay in North Carolina if the structure and rules would have been different? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, I'm sure there was more to go into it than that. And so on one hand, you're also, by allowing some of the bigger profile athletes, just like the smaller profile athletes, to get NIL, then you keep that kid in a North Carolina school, and you're filling out the stands more. You're bringing in more eyes, and, you know, it's one of those things where it's like the old adage in college football recruiting is, you know, you don't necessarily have to be the top recruit, but if you play a top recruit and you beat them, then all of a sudden coaches are looking at you too. And so I'm all for keeping our North Carolina athletes in North Carolina. And so I think this is an avenue that allows that to happen. Now, where I do have an issue with it is who's protecting these kids. You know, I mean, I think there's schools that have great athletic directors and great systems in place that'll do a lot to help these kids, but not everyone has that. Not everyone has the greatest facilities and the greatest, structure in place to handle something like this. So what are you going to do when, a kid is getting a six-figure NIL offer and he's got no support system?
Right.
That's
I
the
don't want to
issue
name
I have.
specific players.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the things that, from the first question that I asked you when we started into this, do any of the states that have already got it and had it for a while, has anybody done anything to put any type of structure in place to make sure that everybody that's affected gets protected?
And to, go on a state by state, I think a lot of them have similar rules to what we just saw, like Tennessee.
But not from a guidance standpoint or anything like that, in protecting them with contracts and how all this stuff works out, or even going back to Four's point. Let's say that part of that would also include that NIL deal. A part of that money should come back to the school to help go back into the facilities, that are there. One of the things that so many, and I'm sure you're no different up there in Hayesville, you've got some great boosters, but everybody can always use more money for facilities. I mean, stuff always needs updating and needs things. It would be nice if part of that was a part of it as well, because then everybody's kind of, sharing from it as Ford talked about from a taxpayer standpoint. I know they got state tax to pay and that type thing, but you think about the states that allow NIL that don't have state tax, like a Florida or some others. So I just wish there had been – I liked that the National Federation of High Schools were the first ones to get ahead of this, much like the NCAA did not. They just kept thinking it would go away. But they didn't do enough, in my opinion, to go ahead and put some structure and guidelines, just like with the NCAA now. You've let the genie out of the bottle and you don't have any control, and it's going to be hard to go back and put any kind of structure with it.
Yeah, and that's your big issue. And so now you've opened, a can of worms that you can't close. And I think you're just at where you're at. Like I said, overall, I think it's hard in most cases when over half the states in the country have done something and you're not following suit.
Right.
And so you kind of had to get on the train. And that's the thing is, too, is if other states would have done a better job when they were the first 2 or 3 states to allow NIL, it would have changed the whole landscape. Same thing if the NCAA would have, not been so staunch in saying we're not allowing it until literally the Supreme Court said, well, you don't have a choice.
Right.
Things could have gone differently.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of unknowns. And there's so much nuance to it, because what do you do if you're that big primetime quarterback that's a 4-star and you're getting a car and your offensive linemen, maybe you got 1 or 2 that are going to go play 1 AA ball, but they're not getting anything.
Well, and we talked about that. We talked about that.
The whole locker room dynamic.
Yeah.
So
when this came out yesterday, that's exactly what we're talking about. What kind of effect it has on the locker room.
it's crazy, Caleb, as a former head football coach in high school and college baseball coach, all these things, that one thing that, and I know you know this, but in our listeners, but one thing that is so important, regardless of the athleticism and all these things that are out there, the dynamics and all that, are the actual dynamics in the locker room, right? And the things that can go on from, there's always going to be jealousy, there's always going to be envy, but how do we as, not only community, but coaches and players, cut through that, come together, put the best product on the field, do what we can do for the best overall experience. So the one question I want to pose to you is this, and I'm asking is if if there's anything in place for this. So Hayesville is where you are. Let's pick Murphy, okay? So in Hayesville, you guys have had some good baseball in years past, okay? You beat Hallsborough, I believe, in the state championship in 1988. All right, all right, let's say it's football, all right, which you've had good teams in the past too. So let's say you do have a 5-star, a 5-star quarterback that's grown up in Hayesville. He's now entering the 10th grade. He's one of the top players, not only in North Carolina prospects, but in the country. All of a sudden, all right, somebody from Murphy moves in from Atlanta that's retired, or somebody lives there now. They may own, like you said, a dealership locally. They say, we're going to give that kid $2 million to come play at Murphy. Okay? What does that do to Hayesville? So I think the problem that exists.
Well,
Go ahead. I'd like for you to. Is there anything that's available to help with that?
I do know, based on the structure of what came out from the NCAA yesterday, that's illegal. So that's against the rules. You can't use NIL to recruit. They say the same thing at the college level.
But it's not happening. We all know it's not happening.
So let me give you a good example of that. Let's say that kid decides to move to Murphy because everything's been provided for him. The house, for the family, jobs, cars, money, all these things. Then does it become legal? And how is that any
and I think that'll be what's interesting to see is how not only the North Carolina but other states legislate and rule on that. Is the NCAA is doing nothing when these kids are getting DMs from boosters at another school, and maybe they're not saying, hey, you leave, I don't know, Troy University because you're a star there to come to Alabama, we'll give you $1 million.
Right.
I don't think it's word for word going on like that, but everyone understands what's going on.
Right.
Yes.
They can't sign it till after they do the scholarship and move, but it's implied that it's there waiting on you.
And I think the biggest thing is that someone may say, what's the difference in that? And it's not apples and oranges. This is, what's the difference in what, the scenario I presented to you than a kid from an academic standpoint leaving the school they're at to go to, another school that has, this great science program that, works with NASA, that they're being brought in because of their intelligence quotient and everything else, to provide for that and maybe even paid. And, we say, well, that's not athletics and this, but it still falls under, these people, most of them likely, as you had stated earlier, under 18 years old. And the difference between them and then the college kids that are over 18 that are considered, even though most of them aren't, they're considered adults legally, right? I'm not against this by any means. These are just things that people brought up and that will bring up, and I'm just interested in, the things that you see, the opinions you have, the things you hear on how maybe these questions or issues may be handled and, worked out, for the benefit of, the player. Because I certainly want people to get what they're entitled to or, justly, earn and deserve. It's just a lot of dynamics,
One thing I'm really interested in, too, is the NCHSAA did state that, I think this was stated before the passage of it, so I'm assuming it'll all come downhill, that, coaches and athletic directors are now going to be required to take an NIL class through the NCHSAA, kind of like some coaches have to take the concussion course in certain sports, or it might be all sports now. So, I'd be really curious to see what that looks like. I wish the NCHSAA, and maybe they will, let some reporters or folks in to see what does that look like. How much is the NCHSAA going to help? Right. And I think it's smart in the aspect that this doesn't start tomorrow. I mean, it starts pretty soon. We got 2 months.
Right.
But there is some time for these schools. I mean, because could you imagine if this vote would have happened yesterday and then kids are starting to field NIL offers today? That would have been a really difficult situation. So I'm glad there's a little bit of time, and I'd be really curious to see what that NIL course looks like. But and another aspect with that is North Carolina coaches are underpaid, just like North Carolina teachers. I don't think that's a shock to anyone if you're at a public school. And what are you going to do now when your players are making more money than you in certain instances? Well, so I think there's a lot to it that there's going to be situations that are great where a strong booster's business is providing kids with a little financial help, especially maybe some players that need it more. Where maybe this kid, if they get a little NIL deal, they can play football next year instead of having to work to help their family, because there's kids in those situations. And I think some of that has the potential for really good stuff. And then I think there's situations where the higher profile athletes, or we've talked $1 million or 6-figure deals. But I mean, when you were in high school and when I was in high school, I'm telling you right now, as much love as I have for Hazel, it probably would not have taken $1 million if someone wanted to pay me to go play elsewhere. And so what does it take when, especially at some of these smaller schools that do have some bigger businesses in the town, what does it take to draw a player from one school to another with an NIL deal? Is it $1,000? Is it $10,000?
Right.
And I think that's where the Dangerfield is. I don't think it's the really high, because these athletes that are really high-level athletes that are going to get six-figure deals, the six-figure deals are coming here, they're coming there. It doesn't matter. They also have social media followings already that necessitate that. And then I think, you know, your smallest profile athletes that aren't even your all-conference players, you know, maybe they get a little bit of booster love if they go to a well-supported program. But it's that middle class, these kids that are, you know, maybe they're not a 5-star, but they're a 2 or 3-star, or, you know, they're, you know, good enough to play JUCO ball. But, you know, if you got your, you know, all-conference team put together, and, you know, you get a starting left guard, a starting defensive end, and a you know, high-caliber running back, that can be enough at small schools and even, you know, mid-sized schools to take your team from third place in the conference to first and, you know, contend them for a title.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right.
There's a lot of dynamics here, man. It's been a great discussion.
There's a lot more questions than answers that we've got. Yeah. Caleb, I appreciate it on the short notice. Join us. I'm going to hold on to your information, and I'm sure as this thing continues to evolve, we'd like to get you back on again.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. I appreciate it. And, folks, you know, if you're interested, check us out at WSN.com. We're covering lots of pro sports stuff, giving, you know, game predictions, previews, and all that stuff. We're a growing website trying to provide stuff outside of what, you know, an ESPN or a Fox Sports does. So we appreciate visitors to our site. And I thank you guys for having me on as well.
Thank you, Caleb. We appreciate it. We'll be touched in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, sir. You too.
Fantastic.
You know, and it does, and this is the thing that always concerns you. It poses more questions than answers because they didn't really give any answers.
You know, the thing that's most concerning to me is that, you know, about 1% to 2% of these kids actually going to play college sports, and you know, probably 1/100th of 1% of the overall athletes actually get a deal of any kind. What are we doing with legislation to address the other 98% with the experience that high school athletics provides?
Well,
for them?
And that's
all of this is being catered to the top. Like, it seems like that's what I hear a lot about in society, that it's this, that, but yet this seems to be where all the interest is. I think, you know, as a former, you know, teacher and coach in interscholastic sports, high school, you know, college, middle school, you know, even coaching Gary's youth league team now, I think the one thing that I've really learned, Lanny, you know, after about the first 5 or 6 years that I was in the business of helping and actually coaching, is I've tried to make the overall experience very well for each player, regardless of ability level. And I don't see legislation from the High School Athletic Association or anybody, even locally, really providing that venue. It's more about who's transferring in, who can do this, who can win this game. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be a winner, but I think, and you know, regardless of how this sounds, I think based on prior personal experience, that you can do those things and still have a very well holistic, rounded approach to what you're doing that encompasses, you know, the whole holistic side of each player, each participant, each competitor, and the benefits that come with it. We've had a great discussion today. It's been very enlightening, but I would like to see some things happen for the other 98% at some point. Yep,
no, I agree, and not just in athletics, but all the way across the board. And that's what some of the comments that were coming in. Lynch said maybe we should, stop devaluing the school part to the point that it's only a vehicle for kids who are athletic. The lifelong educators fired up. Yeah. Mandy said, will the NCHSAA dictate the rules? No, because the rules were going to be dictated by the local educational unit. Right. That's one of the issues that we've got. Yeah. Milt said, why can't a coach get NIL money? Why can't you get NIL money for the program?
Well, you used to from local boosters, and that was considered taboo and wrong. Yeah. And you can't do that, and, that's the worst thing in the world, but yet it's okay for the kid. So I wonder where the conflict of interest is and the professionalism that goes on within. You talk about paying coaches and paying teachers more, okay? There are a lot of side benefits that are accompanied later in life based on being in the public, right, working for that. Now, do we think that, things should be at a very, reasonable and accommodating wage? Yes, all right. To that point, when things can be done on the side, teachers have every opportunity to go and tutor if they want to, go work at a community college, just as coaches have an opportunity to go coach in the summer or to maybe do, lessons at a facility, okay? So there's other ways to enhance what you're doing. I don't think that restraint of trade is the best way to do anything. I think the market should be open and free, and whatever happens, happens, because what it does is if someone's not doing their job and just, doing it just to do something, if they don't want all their kids to leave or they want the best coaches, they're going to have to up their game. So in turn, when you open up things to free, it puts personal responsibility on others instead of deferring blame. Well, that team over there is always good because they do this and they recruit that. There's a reason kids that are great players want to play together. All right? That is because the environment is such that allows them to thrive. Fix the environment in the other area instead of saying everything needs to be fair, because as we found out today, there's nothing fair.
No.
Okay? So, that old argument about, well, it's got to be fair, and no, it doesn't. That's the first sign of failure of oversight, is when they talk about fairness. It has to be equal opportunity. All right? It has to be equitable in opportunity. All right? These things that we've talked about today are really good, but
and the way that some things are structured, you can't get that equal opportunity.
And that's the problem because of bureaucracy, right? Lindsay has good points about, focus on the educational side of things. What we need to do from an educational standpoint is bring it up 50 years.
Yeah.
We're still 50 years, as she well knows.
Yeah.
And she works every day to try to get it to the next level, because that's what she does. It goes in and helps bring other, systems up and get them to tier. But the problem is there needs to be a revamping.
Yeah.
She can tell you right now on personal experience of how bad some situations
Yep.
are. And then she goes in, well, listen, that bad situation is not managed appropriately.
Right.
Right? That's her job. And, there are things that we can always improve, and, we fuss about it and stuff, but the goal is to make sure it's the best opportunity for all of us.
Right.
And if someone doesn't want to put the effort into the opportunity, it should not hinder someone else based on fairness. Okay? Because it's an individual choice.
This was my point, as Chad said. Chad said, when I said there's no structure to this, there's no guidelines, there's no how this is going to be handled, what if they pass legislation that forced the NIL funds at the high school level to be deposited in 529?
Because, well, I'll tell you why. That's a good point, and the intent there is right, but it's because, and I will tell you because I know this, it's because that money then goes into fund companies that reap the benefits of you investing in the funds, okay, with other monies that were given in. So it causes a conflict of interest across the board. Now, is that a bad idea? No, but there are many, many different layers that go into that where that money can be put in a savings account. Well, why is it not put in, life insurance, kind of like the banks do with money? They put money into life insurance, right? Anytime we make deposits, money goes into that, right? And then they earn a percentage amount, they pay out a percentage, and then they pull it back in. Now, I'm not saying that's what they do with all money, but I'm saying, why is that not being done? Jim Harbaugh structured his deal in life insurance. People say, well, yeah, but it's only good for the death benefit. That is not true.
Well, I think
ways
the point
to draw that money out.
The point that Chad's trying to make is there needs to be some kind of structure to make sure it's protected, because they have no idea what they really have in assets at that age.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about with child labor laws. How is this any different than Quinn going to work at Three Hermanos at age 15, which, I sent him down there to work with the guys. They had, bus boy, things like that. How's that any different if Ricardo says, he's the best bus boy I've ever seen. Here's $100,000.
Yeah.
Where did what in the world just happened? Now, did he do that? No, I'm just giving an example.
Yeah.
It could be anything. It could be a car dealership, or let's say when Lindsay was like in the 10th grade, and all of a sudden she discovered a new scientific method to education, learning. And she's 16. Well, they sent her off to like MIT to go ahead and start working on these things. She's 16. Where does that fall? Who's reaping the benefit?
Right.
Who's maximizing the opportunity?
Right.
Is there a marriage between the two? Again, I want to be very clear. I'm not against any of this. I would just like to see how things line up in consistency with the hindrance that is caused when other people try to have opportunities.
Well, there's just not enough structure
child
to
labor laws.
There's not enough structure to it.
That's what I'm saying. All this is in the name of sports and higher companies and monies, which I completely understand. The world is what it is. But to say that a kid would not transfer from Newton to Hickory or from Bandy's
if the money's
to
not right.
East Lincoln or Maiden to Lincolnton or whatever, that's crazy. That's crazy to say, well, yeah, but we're not giving them money. We're just providing, the parents a house and a job. That's been done before.
Sure.
To anybody to say that that's
long
not true,
before any of this was available.
Anyone to say that that's not true, the head is in the sand.
Yeah.
Okay?
Nope.
You know, I don't see it, therefore it's not happening. This has happened in high school sports before.
Yep.
Now it's just on a much more recognizable level from a money standpoint.
And by doing part of this, it's putting it on top of the table instead of under the table. Still doesn't make it right or wrong. You still have issues.
Yeah,
there.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
That's why I say open it up and just let it flow.
Yeah. Hey, great day today. Give you something to think about.
Holy cow, my mind's fried.
I'm stressed out. I may need another do. Have a great day. Boys will be in here Saturday. No show tomorrow. I got some work I got to get done because I've got outdoor therapy scheduled tomorrow afternoon. Have a great one, everybody. See ya.